Welcome to the Great British Mickey Waffle, the podcast that brings you thoughts, experiences, and insights about Disney with some very strong and a little varied British accents. I'm Claire, and I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming to the show for a proper chat our very special guest this month, Jon Self. Some of you may remember Jon making a spectacular cameo back in November when Hurricane Nicole blew into Orlando in the middle of Peter and Jill's last trip to Walt Disney World. He was kind enough to swing by Port Orleans French Quarter and check they hadn't been blown away to Oz. And we can't wait to have a discussion about all the news and some food-related items with him today. So this isn't a solo jaunt, as regulars will know. So here to join in the conversation, as it's all about the news and the food, are Jon, Ben, Jill and Peter, and hopefully in slightly less windy circumstances today.
Absolutely, yeah.
I hope so. I'm not sure whether the microphone could cope with more wind noise.
I know. No, crazy day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was, yes.
So Jon is also a regular in the chat on our weekly Wednesday show, Wafflers Wednesday, which is at 8:30 at UK time or 3:30 Eastern, live on our YouTube channel at GB Mickey Waffle. We focus on one topic for what we like to call a fat hour, because usually we just run over. And we love it when you come and join in the chat and with your opinions, questions and thoughts. So check it out every Wednesday. So Jon, an avid theme park fan, a travel and foodie writer for several popular Orlando-based websites, and a well-known name in the theme park writing and editing world. And interestingly, has had the opportunity not to only look at Disney food, but in the last 24 hours of our recording, a whole load of news.
Yes.
So we've had a bit of a change of plan with our script, and that's how we roll. So Jon, welcome to you. It's dry, sunny, calm, the opposite to last time you interacted with us live. And how are you today?
I think I'm doing okay, and I need to apologize to your audience that your lovely British accents. I am bringing a Southern U.S. accent, so that when I say certain words like "why" or "nine," suddenly those will become 12 syllable words, and I apologize for that formally. But I'm more than happy to come on, and more than happy to be here in less windy circumstances, but those windy circumstances allow me to stick around and do a whole bunch of extra media events because my flights back to the Midwest here in the U.S. got canceled during that November trip. I'd forgotten about that. I think I'd blocked that out. Like tragic. Yeah. I just blocked that experience out. So I'm doing okay. I'm glad to see you all are functioning, and we'll see if we can do something with this news because Disney has dumped so much on us. Like we were talking in the pre-recording, I've talked to lots of other people about this who are news-making people in the Disney news world, and they're like, well, we're not sure what this means. And so we're going to try to figure this out. So everybody listening, just play along. And if you hear this a week after we record and you're like, well, that's not what they meant, we're sorry.
This news is what happens when Disney releases 5 pieces of information in one social media post and go, there you go, there's a post, there's a blog, enjoy it.
Yeah.
And
we all went, what?
And don't forget about our new sushi restaurant replacing Tokyo Dining at Epcot.
Yeah, that is completely hot off the press.
Right, and in my yes, thank you, good job. In my Universal world, this is the last day of Poseidon's Fury. So, yes.
Oh no!
So sorry. This is Disney's podcast unaware it's the last day of Poseidon's Fury, which needed to go anyway. As someone who writes more Universal than Disney, Poseidon's Fury needed to go about 5 years ago, but that's a different conversation.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I think we've done it twice. Once on a honeymoon in 2013, and I think in 2016 as well. And it was like we never went in there afterwards. It was nice to do it once, and that was it.
Are they going to keep Bob the sarcastic fountain? This is the question.
So far, the Mystic Fountain is not on the chopping block.
Yeah. I love the fountain. You go and talk to it, and it's really sarcastic and says, crazy things to you and spits water at you if you're unfortunate.
So is that their version of the spitting camel in Adventureland? It's like Universal's version.
No, the spitting camel has no regard for humanity whatsoever. It will spit on you at Mickey's Not So Scary when it's 40 degrees and not care. Not that I'm bitter or anything. But Universal has this. Universal, has, as we well know, it's in their famous horror makeup show. They've edited that script, but the official script says, we don't have to be nice to the children here. We're not Disney. Okay, so there's always some different things, and so they're a little more sarcastic there.
I know. I love that. But yeah, going back to the news, shall I do a quick roundup of the highlights that got announced?
First of all, maybe
while we all celebrate, we actually celebrate.
Yeah. I know.
And are we going back in time?
I've got my time machine out today.
Well, when I read this last night, my first instinct was, I'm really happy about this. These are things that we've wanted for a while, and I was as happy as I was as when Bob Chapek left the company.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm comparing this. So first up, we have the removal of theme park reservation requirements for date-based tickets.
Yes.
Introducing good-to-go days for annual pass holders and cast members. Bringing back fan favourite Disney dining plans. And continuing to provide extended park time to Disney Resort guests, both in the morning and in the evening for deluxe guests. And the biggest one of all, simplifying Disney Genie Plus.
Thank goodness.
Because as we've known since we've had it, it's been quite complicated. Once we dig into the detail of it, let's see how positive we are at the end.
The only thing that was missing, Ben, was the return of paper Fastpasses to that list.
John just wants to have his run to get to Toy Story. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, for some of you under a certain age, you have no idea the thrill and the terror, because I was there the first couple of months of the paper Fastpass entering the world, where Fastpass wasn't even a part of every attraction. It was at Rock and Roller Coaster, but it wasn't at Tower of Terror, for instance. It's one of those kind of things. Yeah. There's something about holding that paper Fastpass in your hand that, speaking of going back in time, that's pretty much.
And seeing how many paper Fastpasses you could actually get in a whole park day was always one of those mean feats that you would really sort of you get to the end of a park day and you turn around to the kids and say, look, hey, it was worth coming in for Oak Drop after all, wasn't it? As the kids are absolutely shattered. You're driving the hire car back to the villa, and the kids are already asleep by the time you hit the 192. So, that's it. Anyway, I digress as always.
I think the biggest thing for me, reading the detail of the Disney Genie experience, is more about the planning before being in the park and before the day of. And I know for my experience, when we had Fastpass Plus before Genie, that we loved being able to book 30 or 60 days before. We knew we could get those 3 attractions in. It'll be interesting to see what detail we get from Disney when this happens for next year.
There hasn't been a lot, has there? It's just...
No, they've said absolutely nothing, and they have been very careful about it in their way. Basically, they have said, we are looking at doing this. Now, if you go back to a previous press release about, maybe this wasn't a public press release, but they said, we're looking at making Genie Plus, we're simplifying Genie Plus. So it's the same code word. It's the same way they say, we have done this to enhance guest experience, which is their code word for everything. The Genie Plus, we've simplified Genie Plus, but we're not giving you any information on how we're going to do that. I mean, maybe they have a good plan, maybe they don't. But some of you, like you, many of you in the UK got to do this much longer than we did. You could book Genie Plus with your package.
Yeah.
And that the not getting up at 7 a.m. would just simplify it.
Yeah.
I can't quite work out whether simplifying it is a suggestion that we're all idiots and we can't manage the system they've put in place, or whether they've recognised the tech isn't working very well. Either is an option, I suppose, in the word simplify.
Well,
I think also, sorry, I think also to have to learn 3 or so systems, most of which are online before you step into a theme park. It's just going to be too much for some people, particularly when you have families and you have grandparents coming and so on. You know, it's just too much for a lot of people.
Yeah, I can't tell you how enjoyable it was to experience Walt Disney World in that awkward COVID time where there were no fast passes, there was no Genie Plus, there was just standby lines. There was boarding passes for Rise of Resistance. And by the way, if you would like to get boarding pass 5 or boarding pass 7 for Rise of Resistance, the Cabana Bay Beach Resort lobby Wi-Fi is the best place to be. I've done it a couple times. to just say, but then you got to get it. You got to get your Uber and get you over get you over there very quickly. But that's okay. That it was just enjoyable and wonderful. I know the crowds were lower. I respect that Disney can't go back to that. I totally understand that. But it's one of those struggles of, we've created a system to try to make things easier, and we're making, I don't want to throw out the number, but the amount of money that's made on Genie Plus currently, there is no way they can go back. I mean, it's the gross national product of lots of countries that they make in a month on Genie Plus, as I've seen. So they can't go back, and they've been planning to do this for a while. But what does simplify mean? I mean, I warned us before in pre-recording I would be the voice of negativity, but Claire was like, "Do they think we're dumb?" And I mean, that's not what you said, but that's what I heard.
No, that's what I said.
Sorry, maybe I was being pastoral there. For those who don't know where my Twitter handle is, my Twitter handle is Pastor Jon Self, so that's my day job. And it's one of those struggles of, okay, you think we couldn't handle booking it the day of. Now, in their writing, the Disney Parks blog writing, and we can talk off recording who writes for Disney Parks blog. That's a whole different conversation. It says, we don't want you, basically it says in code language, we don't want you to spend your whole time on your phone while you're at Walt Disney World, because that's the valid complaint they're hearing.
Yeah.
But that's the way it was with FastPass Plus. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was at Animal Kingdom and I'm sitting there on Kilimanjaro Safari booking Pandora or booking something else the whole time, and I'm not looking up. But
I was always refreshing, looking for that next one. I remember so many times with Fastpass Plus that as soon as I got the first allocation, first one was done, I was like, I'm in the queue, I've tapped in, I'm getting my next one. I was always focused on doing that. So it's still the same issue.
Right. But if we can just go back to, I don't have to wake up at 6:50 in the morning to buy Genie Plus between midnight and 7 o'clock in the morning. Every day was ridiculous. And I know, and yes, we check this, and yes, I'm a part-time, well, I guess I'm a half-time food blogger now. Yes, breakfast sales at Walt Disney World improved during the Genie Plus era. I wonder why. Breakfast sales were up about 27% or something like that. So that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Having said that, if you didn't have to get up, if I said to you, okay, we're going to charge you for Genie Plus, which means they're going to have to streamline the pricing because they can't change it the morning of, which is what they've been doing. So they have to streamline the pricing. But I said to you, I can't believe I'm suggesting this. Please don't be listening, Disney. You're going to stay for 14 days. We're going to charge you $23. I just picked something in the middle for every day. But you don't have to get up at 7 a.m. and it'll be booked. And we'll give you one extra attraction each day if you book it in advance. Many of you would say that sounds great because we've been living in Dante's Inferno for so long that not having a fast pass, that we're happy to take any crumb that Disney throws us. And so, I don't know what simplified means.
Well, simplified is it could be Disneyland Paris simplified, Disneyland Paris Tokyo.
Yes.
Where there is no know all day. You just pay. It's much simpler just to pay each ride than it is to booking. That could be simplified. That could be what they mean.
Oh,
I think that makes it complicated. I like the idea of the sort of one day is the whole park, but I just think it needs to be the same price across the board.
Yeah,
When
we were fortunate.
We were in there over Christmas.
We have opened Pandora's box.
Day.
Yeah,
and then
we've
they
opened Pandora's box.
Price. It was
with varied pricing. We've opened it because SeaWorld, Universal, and Disney have embraced it fully.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. We were fortunate that when we went in November, we managed to get it Genie Plus added for length of stay, and it cost us about £100. And that definitely affected how we did the parks. If we had been paying for it separately every day, we probably wouldn't have booked it every day. We probably wouldn't have bought it. But on the days we did, we would feel pressure to be in the park all day to get the most out of it. But because we'd paid for it 6 months in advance and it was gone and done, we felt free to just leave a park at lunchtime and go back and have a rest and come back to another park in the evening without feeling pressure to use it on a lot of rides in any particular day.
This past weekend, Becca and I spent a lot of it on touring plans, planning our trip in next month, and we've dedicated one park per day for Genie Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just sort of, we know that we're going there for over 2 weeks, so we don't need Genie Plus every day. It is a holiday for us, so it's not something we need. But with mixture of Genie Plus and touring plans, and just working out what our must-dos are and how we want to do it, it's really useful.
I think you're right, Ben, because actually there are parks from my point of view, there's always that we know we're going to go back. So I think none of us sitting here are going to go, well, we're only going once, so we're going to do everything. We know we can't. And there are parks that I'll buy Genie Plus for and parks that I won't. And, it depends on the day. It depends how busy it is. It depends on the time of year. If someone said to me, well, you're going to pay for it all up front for your entire 2 weeks, I'd tell them to jog on because, for a family of 4, you're looking at over $1,000 for something that you probably don't need. Let's be frank. But, for some people, if you're only going for 2 or 3 days, it might be the perfect solution to being able to capitalize on that expedited queue experience. Then they're going to miss all the cool stuff in the Everest queue, but that's their choice.
I think it's a weird one because actually, as someone who I actually took the news that came out yesterday as such a massive step forward from where we have been for a few years, and this actually could. I'm saying could because I'm still not convinced that we'll get back there. Not me personally, but back to where we were as regarding getting something for free from Disney. It's not going to happen, is it, guys?
Those two things, they don't belong in the same sentence, Disney and free.
I think it's after the stable door, isn't it? But for me, it actually, I think probably a little bit like you guys have already said, and how, Ben, you're planning it will mean that that at some point in a trip, that you're going to be able to ride everything that you want. So it means that maybe on the days that you go on a longer, because we'll go for at least 2, 3, or 4 weeks, that during the course of that, you guaranteed it. And so on the other visits to the park, you can actually have that bit where, well, we know that we're going to be able to do that. So we'll come back, we'll do the rest of the park, and I'll still make the kids stand in the standby line for Pandora just because it has to be done. So it's just one of them. But I'm more interested because it was I think until we get a little bit of meat onto this, we just sort of, a lot of this is conjecture. But some of the things that actually did say as well, I'm absolutely intrigued about the mention of the dining plan, because that for me becomes a big, for me, a massive selling point for people from the UK who are planning a trip. They're planning up to 5 nights on site and things like that. you don't have to stay a whole holiday on site, but at least for those days, you can actually opt into the dining plan. It changes your whole thought process, because for the past few years, we've been in that boat where if you come from the UK, you're paying for all your meals. This, for me, I think from this side of the Atlantic, is the best news of the lot. What do you guys think? And John, what do you think?
I'm mixed on that.
Yeah,
because
I'm sorry, Ben. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that because we've got Disney Vacation Club, it's always been a bit of a mix about whether we would rent our points out for the year and go for the UK free dining offer, because the cost of the room and the food actually would work out better value for us, or whether we'd actually just be able to add it on if we were just doing the trip, which you could do. Where now we know the dining plan is coming back, and we know there's no word free included in any of this. And I think Disney has possibly complicated, especially from a UK perspective, with such a good deal with the dining credits. So dining credit on your room up to $2,100, which doesn't really tally up with the dining, the package you can buy to add on to your stay for next year.
Okay.
So I'm quite cautious with this. I think it's good because in most of the forums, most of social media, a lot of people to get people back into the park and go to Disney and stay on site again, the thing that's been stopping them is that there was no dining plan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which always confused me, but I can see a reason for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We always found the dining plan useful. We never ended up with spare credits on anything. We always used them up by the time we went. And it was nice to know that it was just paid for.
You were always that guy in the shop, Peter, weren't you? Trade all them remaining credits on goofy candy.
No. Not a single one.
No.
That was us every trip we had dining plan.
No, on our first trip, we paid. On our first trip, we paid for it because it was December and it was outside of the period when it was free for the UK. And we did 5 signatures in the course of those 2 weeks. So we didn't have any table service credits left. We did lots of breakfasts, quick service breakfasts, and we did some quick service lunches. And we also did snack credits at places like, it wasn't food booths the first time. Second time, we did a lot of food and wine food booths. And it also meant that if you wanted a drink, if you wanted a bottle of Coke, you just got a bottle of Coke. Yes, it's not necessarily a good use of that credit, but they were there to use. So, yeah, both times we found we used every single one. We never bought snacks and things to bring home, never needed it. The food and wine booths.
Opportunity missed there, guys. Yeah. I've got to say. That's what
but also lots and lots of signatures. Whereas last time we went, because we were paying up front, we found that actually we didn't do a single signature. We'd meant to, but a combination of Hurricane Nicole and various other factors meant that we had to cancel several of our bookings. But yeah, looking back, we didn't do any signatures. We didn't do as many table service. Whereas if we'd had the dining plan in place, maybe we would have.
So yeah, we think the dining plan's a good idea.
Depends how much they're going to charge for it, obviously. Which nobody knows yet.
No,
and it's
no
also interesting with the 2 different plans, because I know before they used to have the quick service, the regular dining plan, then you had the deluxe dining plan, and then I remember a few years ago they also had that one that was on top, which was like there were just so many different plans. It's nice that they've gone to simplify it by having quick service and the dining plan.
See, Disney can simplify something. See, we were picking on the for Genie Plus. Look, but I think a couple. Just looking at my notes that I've scribbled up here, with the plans, they've kind of taken away, with the same plan, they've taken away some of the snacks or non-alcoholic beverages, or possibly alcoholic beverages, depending on how they eventually write this up in the plan. So just be careful when you see that. So you may be paying the same for less, but we've been doing that in the whole world for the last 4 years. So that shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, trust me, I'm more than happy, and I write it all the time, that hey, I mean, I just did a review of Morimoto and talked about how great the food was, but says you might need to prepare your budget before you walk in there because, especially if you're getting the Wagyu 1 ounce steak, that's almost $40 an ounce. You might want to prepare for that. But the whole world is more expensive. In Orlando, that market, the job market is just, they literally can't find people. I mean, they're down. Every place is still down about 25-30% on employees compared to what they were before. Wow. That's when you go to Applebee's. That's when you go to Chili's. That's when you go, wherever you go, that's what you experience.
Yeah.
During this time, and it looks suspicious, but I'm not saying that it is because I don't know. Several other restaurants have reached the level of being considered signature restaurants at Walt Disney World. So based on the old plan, that would be 2 table credit, instead of 1. So watch for that as we're looking at this plan. And one of the things we really need to watch for is how is this going to affect restaurant availability? Because Disney, we didn't talk about this in pre-recording. Disney has clarified their cancellation policy again because they went to that goofy 2-hour thing.
Yeah.
How do I say this with all respect and be pastoral here? Stupid. And so and then they allowed people to cancel within the 2 hours, which was leaving restaurants half full, quite frankly. They've closed that loophole and not made a very big deal about it. The only reason we know is because colleagues of mine found it and then started publishing. Everyone just copied their article. Now it's too bad you can't do that. But the reason they did that was to keep people from doing this trick. So don't try it if you're going to. Oh, I'm going to go to Magic Kingdom today. Why don't I make a reservation at the Grand Floridian Cafe? I'll park at the Grand Floridian and then take the monorail to the Magic Kingdom. Yeah. You walk inside and you cancel your reservation and then you get on the monorail. You can't do that anymore. That's why that's the main reason this rule has been put in place. But when you combine that, reservations will be held on to longer and we'll have dining plan reservations added, because I know from chatting with, friend of the show, Dustin at Mouse Dining, this is the thing he has been waiting for. I have not chatted with him about this. I probably should. I haven't chatted with him at all about this, but we saw reservations percentage go down when the dining plan didn't exist. Yeah. The dining plan encourages you to you're going to visit restaurants that you wouldn't normally visit because of the price.
Yeah.
And so you end up spending more money than you probably would. Now, the huge plus of the dining plan is you walk in, it becomes like all expense paid vacation illusion. You already paid for it. Now you're just using what you paid for, which if I'm coming for a vacation, I'm not in this sort of vacationing, mostly blogging world that I live in, then that would be really nice. But I can tell you that for a lot of people, especially domestic visitors, this dining plan is going to be a double-edged sword that's going to be tricky for them. I think for the international visitors, it's going to be more positive than negative, though.
I think it's really interesting in terms of what you were saying, Peter and Jill, and it affects how you holiday, how you might plan. And I think that it probably depends on how you choose to enjoy your meals whilst you're on holiday. So, if you are someone like Peter and Jill who enjoy going for lots of signature meals and using up all your credits and spending time in a restaurant away from the parks and the attractions, then that
we food bloggers appreciate that, by the way.
That may work really well because you are paying up front. It's your all inclusive. You've paid for that, and you can pick and choose where you want to eat. Yeah. If you're someone like John who sees the opportunity as a missed opportunity to get ahead of the crowd, and why on earth would you have a breakfast in a park at 8 a.m. because actually you can get ahead of everyone, then it may not be the most cost-effective way to spend your money. If you're a quick grab and go and you don't really want to sit down, then that may not be the best use of your cash. And I think that for me, I've experienced the free and the paid dining plan as well. And every single time without fail, we were not able to eat the amount of food that was available to us. We overpaid for something that we didn't need. And I'm interested to see how they've probably refined what the offer is. So maybe reduce, and obviously combined with the reduced portion sizes a couple of years ago, that will help everyone. But just trying to think about how much you want to eat when you're on holiday, bearing in mind we tend to go in August when it's this, same temperature as the surface of the sun. You don't necessarily want to eat a lot of food. So, there are things to consider in terms of how you choose to take your time on holiday. And I think it's great that the option's back. It's just a bit of, when the details come out, it is going to be a case of number crunching and really thinking about how it's back to that. I've got to plan ahead and think about whether I really need this or whether
I've got to get that spreadsheet out and work out how much does this cost.
And we all love doing that. We love it. It's part of the trip planning. But I'm the person who had all the credits and I was buying lunch for the people behind me because I wasn't going to allow them to go to waste. This is it. Just there's a lot of food. That was my take.
Can we stand behind you, Claire?
You know what? I think I did it 3 times, and the people behind me in the queue, they were just like, "Are you insane?" I said, "No, we're going home tomorrow, and I've got all these credits that are going to go have your lunch with me, on Disney, whatever."
I think also if you are paying for it, someone like you, Claire, who is eating plant-based stuff, is obviously needs to look at the menu and think, hang on, the dish that I would be getting is this much, and they're asking me to pay this much.
Right. Do you know what? There are some of the plant-based dishes aren't the cheaper dishes. If you look at things like the vegetable Wellington, Steakhouse 71.
Yeah, Steakhouse 71.
Yeah. Topped it. It's like the best plant-based meal anywhere on property. But there is a definite issue in terms of options and where it limits where I would choose to eat. And therefore that has another knock-on impact as to whether I think that plan would be useful for me. It might be fine for the rest of the family, but actually not for me. So, you can chop and change. I hope that you're going to be able to apply it to some of the party and not all, maybe. I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe. I've got one other question. One thing we've seen in the last few years at Disney is a lot more prefix menus. So when we first went back in 2010, we ate at Captain's Grill, and we got a 3-course prefix menu for 1 table service credit. And then by the time we went back in 2014, Disney closed that loophole. And they said, no, if you want a prefix menu, you have to pay extra, even if it costs less than your dining credit would cost. Now, these days, we have a lot of places like Space 220, where the choice is a prefix meal, 3 courses or nothing.
Yeah.
How are they going to do it with dining credits?
2 table service.
John, tell us.
I hadn't pondered the prefix menu thing, so I'm literally just pondering that on my head because there's a way higher percentage of those.
Yeah. They love it.
We know there'll be 2 table service credits. I am proposing that it might be 3.
Okay. See, I had a thought what they could do is they could do 2 table service credits, or what they do on the cruise line is do a $40 upcharge or $20 upcharge. Well, wondering whether they'll follow that sort of Paolo Steakhouse, that sort of remedy.
So when I go to California Grill, by the way, I've never been to California Grill. No one's ever paid me to review California Grills. Just so if someone wants to, I'll be happy to go. If I'm going to California Grill and I'm getting the tomahawk steak, which by the way, I'm getting the prefix and I'm paying an upcharge for that.
Yeah.
So now I'm paying an upcharge for an upcharge for an upcharge. This becomes really expensive really quickly.
Yeah.
And so I think it's going to be tricky because we don't have a lot of details. But I mean, if I were having to scribble something out, maybe I've done that a couple times in the last 12 hours. I would say I think there are more positives than negatives to the dining plan coming back, but I don't think it's going to be all that great. It's going to be the same conversation we had when annual passes came back. Of annual passes coming back is great. However, even as a blogger, I still have not purchased one because for me, based on how I do it, the money doesn't work out right for the annual pass because I don't live in Florida. I have to pay for the top one. If I lived in Florida, that would be different. So just because something's back and it's a good deal for some people
Yeah.
does not mean it's a good deal for you.
Yeah.
That's a really good.
Yeah.
That's a really good bit
Am
of
I
advice
right?
that as well.
Yeah.
Am I
really
right
do.
in thinking that the dining plan is only for people staying on site so far, or is it people
that is
outside?
what they have. That is what they have
Yes.
said, and that is what Disney has unofficially told travel agents.
Yeah.
Right.
So you
okay.
have to book a vacation package.
Yeah.
Which
You
kind of
have-
makes sense, though, doesn't it? Because you're looking at trying to sell
you don't
hotel
have to
rooms
book a
as well.
vacation package.
You
You just have to
stay
be
on site.
on site.
Stay on site, but
Yeah.
it's trickier when you stay on site because then there's if you stay on site, but you have an annual pass. Is that we don't have all those details yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that goes with a lot of stuff we talk about tonight is that make sure you keep an eye on Disney's website because there'll be a lot of terms and conditions that get updated. And I know the date they're talking about with a lot of these is the 31st of May. So that's a date we'll get more detail and more concrete information
And
about.
sometimes
everything
Disney leaks this information to travel agents as well. They should because this is their job.
Yeah.
Disney pays them to do this job after you on your vacation. That's how travel agents work. Sometimes they don't get the information literally until that morning. Sometimes they get it a week, 2 weeks in advance, and then you determine who the good travel agents are because they leak the information, which you're not allowed to do. Okay. But there's a reason why some blogs know the information beforehand because they have travel agents. Okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes they literally do not know until that morning. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
Certainly will. Certainly will. I just enjoy it when when they put the announcement out there and the whole of the Twitter sphere, Facebook groups, the whole lot, they just go into like that rumor generating. It's like it's the end of the world is about to happen, and it's just like. We're not any further. We're not any further forward, really, because actually the news itself is it's not priced out. It's not completely fathomed out. And I'm sure certainly on future Wednesday shows on YouTube, we'll probably drip feed in some extra information. So if you listen to the podcast, catch us on the Wednesday show. We probably will come and revisit it because. I know dining plan's a big favourite.
And we have a lot of shows planned.
We've got some food shows coming up, haven't we? Definitely.
Yeah. That's a surprise because we love the food at Disney.
Yeah.
It's a strong theme. Golden thread.
Yeah.
All of us.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It is.
It's like we knew this was going to happen.
Well,
I'm not sure Disney knew it was going to. I don't even know if Disney accountant probably didn't know it was going to happen because they still haven't costed it all,
Yeah.
Taking it to them a week on Monday.
I think you do them a disservice, John. I think it's always planned.
As well.
Yeah, in fairness, Disney and Universal and SeaWorld and Disneyland are looking at soft sales for the summer and for the early fall, and they're doing everything they can to try to generate some revenue up front. I don't know how that works in your country. We call that the Priceline model, the Priceline.com model, where Priceline buys a bunch of these or gets access to certain hotel rooms and flights, and the airlines and hotels sell it to them at a lower rate because they guaranteed a bunch of money up front.
Yeah.
And so they'll take less money, so they guarantee to have it up front. That's what Disney and Universal and Cedar Point, every amusement park, theme park in the U.S. is doing right now. They're desperately just trying to get some money up front, which is why cynically annual passes came back because Disney needed the money.
Yeah.
So, but I'm not blaming them. Welcome to the real world.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
I mean, if we want to be positive, we can move to the theme park reservations because we know data. We know stuff about that.
We do. Yes, absolutely.
So it's the removal of theme park reservations for date-based tickets.
Yep.
Yeah.
So not for annual pass holders.
Right.
So that is quite
not for cast members.
Not for cast members either.
And not for cheer groups either, because they have paid I just want to mention that since I have a press release from a cheer group that just celebrated something at Walt Disney World that hit my email as we're here. It's like, please write this. I'm like, really? To tell people that you have new stuff? I'm not sure, but that's a blogger problem. We can talk about that another time. But the tickets that they get are not date based, so they still have to make reservations.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So the tickets that we buy,
it's really good for us. Yeah.
So the tickets that we buy, which are our 2-week tickets, or that last for 18 days, and all of the stuff that you get in the UK. Previously they were undated, and you could just use them whenever, as long as it was within a 14 days. So you start. 14-day ticket was used within 14 days, but you could start using it whenever you wanted. Now, obviously, we choose a date when it commences, and you can be really clever because the prices do change slightly. So if you're going to be there for 14 days and it's a bit cheaper a couple of days before you come, then start your ticket a couple of days before. Just saying, not that I've done that. But the actually having when you're traveling. So why is a date-based ticket an issue? It's not, unless you're going for an extended period. John, looking at you, who gone for a month. Actually, we know when we're traveling, so it's not an issue. And to be able to just have that flexibility of playing bus roulette in the morning and going whichever park the bus turns up for, or actually yesterday we ended up doing X, Y, and Z, so we're going to change our plan tomorrow, and we don't have to go through the saga of changing our park reservations and hoping that there's 4 left for tomorrow for something. And I haven't fallen foul of it. I haven't had an issue in terms of there not being park reservations available, despite the different times of year that I've gone in the last year. But I know other people have, so it's all good.
There is part of it that I think that's missing, and I could be wrong. I've only just thought about it. What about Park Hopper? I'm guessing is it still going to be 2 p.m.?
Funny you should mention that. Do you want me to rant and rave about park hopping?
Yeah,
go on. 2 p.m. So it's like if they're removing a reservation.
Okay. Well, let me state this, and this is I want to give credit to Scott Gustin. If you don't follow Scott Gustin on Twitter, maybe you should. This is what he wrote, and in honor of being on a UK theme park podcast, I will make this. He said, "And ye park hopping rules shall remain in effect until the death of the last survivor of the descendant of King Charles III." Oh, sorry. That's not the right story. Hold on. However, sorry, different story I'm tired of writing about. Having said that, many of the people who were at the official meeting with Disney, because they do this little mini conference call for the important media, and they asked about park hopping, and the standard answer was the park hopping rules at 2:00 will remain until further notice, though things can change. So just because if you enter, like say for instance, you enter with your ticket, you show up at 11:00 because you can show up wherever you want with your date-based ticket. Mm-hmm. You decide to go to Epcot at 1:00, too bad. You still got to wait till 2.
Okay.
Park hopping is going to stay. Park hopping allows them to solve this problem because they're giving back to the customer what they want. They don't want to have to make a theme park reservation. But what they still get to keep is, well, we can see how many people we have based on how many people showed up, and then we can adjust our staff as we need to. Because that's what they love about this theme park reservation is they can control their staff. They can say, you don't need to work this day. We'll have you work a shorter shift, and we can do this and we can do that, which it sounds like the cast members are being hurt by that. They're really not, but it's easier for Disney, and the payroll goes down dramatically. This allows them to still have some of that. So that's where so the park hopping, you're still going to wait till 2. Sorry. Good luck. And for being at Animal Kingdom on the 25th anniversary, that last Saturday, what was a couple Saturdays ago, the number of people who park hop to Animal Kingdom at 2:00, which doesn't make a lot of sense, by the way, the lines to get in at 2:00, because I was leaving to go to Epcot, the lines to get into Animal Kingdom it looked like Christmas Day to get into Magic Kingdom. So
wow.
It was immense. And I went over to Epcot and got a virtual queue for Guardians of the Galaxy to tell you how slow it was over there at 2:00 or whatever it was.
That's impressive.
Park hopping is still going to be an issue. So, but let's celebrate the reservations. But park hopping's still there.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the benefits of our UK tickets is that we get everything thrown in. We pay for it, but it's there's still a good deal in comparison to the in terms of if you do the number crunching, there's still a good deal because we get the photo pass, we get mini golf, we get park hopping, get the water parks. We don't have to add any of that on. And when you do the day by day, if you're there for more than 5 days, it's definitely a better, because I've been there on 5-day trips and bought a 14-day UK ticket because it's cheaper, which is ridiculous. But at some point they'll take that away, I'm sure. Let's hope not soon. They'll cotton on.
Well, they took away the loophole from those of us who live in the U.S. because some of us in the U.S., if we bought the right ticket from the right travel agency, could get the same thing. This was 10, 15 years ago. We got the same deal that you got. They took that away. And then they took away the Universal SeaWorld version also. And so it'll happen eventually, but please enjoy your UK ticket.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we will. We will.
Oh, we do. We do. Yeah,
absolutely. Good. As I'm staring, paying $1,400 US for an annual pass to Walt Disney World. So enjoy that.
Definitely.
But we're paying £5,000, £6,000 for a 14-day stay.
Yes, and I am paying almost nothing to fly there. I totally get the argument.
I think it's 6 1 and 2 3s, isn't it? It all works out, and Disney get the money at the end of the day. We all go.
Yeah.
And all I can say is don't compare to your previous trips how much you spend, because you'll be very disappointed.
Don't do that. It's depressing when I go back to reviews that I wrote, writing one review a month. Because I'll pick something that, if you're unaware, we'll say something positive before we leave the park hopping thing. The ahi tuna nachos at Confisco, they're really good at Confisco's Grill at Universal too. At Yak and Yeti at Animal Kingdom, I wrote a review for some site that may have already been mentioned here back in the old days, and they were $14 US for the ahi tuna nachos.
Wow.
They're almost double that now. So, and they're not any bigger. So just for perspective, you got to do that. But the park hopping thing just allows Disney to have control, and we're all excited. Disney's giving us back things that were free before, and so we've got to remember that. It's like a parent I don't have a child of this age, so I can talk all big. When you make a decision, to take away your kid's cell phone, and the kids, their whole world is destroyed, and then you give it back to them, you seem like the best parent in the world. You just gave them back what they already had. Okay? So they had already acquired it. So it's the same sort of thing. We're the kid that was grounded, and now we're getting our phone back.
Yeah.
So.
Brilliant.
I think that's really all about the park hopping thing, and don't fall for that marketing if you're a U.S. resident or an annual pass person about the good to go days. That's just disguised bonus reservations. They just changed the name.
Yep.
You're not getting any more reservations with your annual pass or if you're staying off site. Those of you who stay, one of the Walt Disney World must bring the perks back to staying at a Walt Disney World hotel, because a lot of them have gone away. So they've got to bring those back. That's why they're going to continue the 14-day pass for a while, because they have to keep UK visitors from going to Universal. The best way to do that is to offer you 14 days for almost nothing. And then you look at going to 2 days at Universal, you're like, well, that's about the same price as my 14-day ticket. Sorry, that's not happening. I'm not doing that.
Absolutely.
And that's why that's happening.
Oh, we did.
Right.
Yeah.
We did.
Right. That's a whole different conversation. But my point is, everyone's like, well, we're all worried about Epic Universe. Disney is not worried about Epic Universe. They'll just change their marketing plan, change how they're doing things, and it'll be fine. Yeah. They'll be fine. The mouse will always be the mouse. As I sit here drinking my Pepsi product, Universal will always be Pepsi to Disney's Coke. That's always the way it would be. Okay. And as someone who goes to Universal more and drinks Pepsi, okay, I totally get that. It's not a problem. Having said that, these plans and Walt Disney World has to get control of their spending, because the theme parks are holding together the entire company. The company is losing money faster than We can make fun of both of our governments, quite frankly, and our governments are running money better than Disney is at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, so just for perspective, yes, that indictment was intended the way it was said.
Yeah.
So they've got to have some control, and so they're not going to give up on this park hopping thing until they absolutely have to. And so we should just get used to the reservations. And if you're staying off site, like Jon said, if you're staying off site for part of your trip, you're going to have a limited amount of reservations you can make. So you got to kind of watch that. So those kind of things.
Yeah.
That might affect you depending on what tickets you have. But in your case, that would be no problem. And you should be celebrated. And we should celebrate that you don't have to mess with that anymore. So I don't want to be, as I said, I don't want to be too gloomy.
Well, one thing I'm quite happy that's carrying on for next year, even though we don't have a trip booked, is that the extended park time is still carrying on.
Yeah.
Because that extra half an hour in the morning, I know it doesn't sound like much, but depends on the park, depends on the time, can be really useful. And for Magic Kingdom and Epcot, if you're staying at Deluxe or a DVC Villa, you get extra 2 hours twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
So it's making that extra park time without having to spend any more.
Oh, I agree. It's a great thing that they've added. Of course, those of us who've been going to theme parks for a really long time, we remember when everybody got to stay. Or I remember this is how old I am. I remember going, and there was this new thing they were started called the e-ticket night, where you would spend $10 US. And you could stay in Magic Kingdom for 4 extra hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now it's 100 and something, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not what it costs now. And we can't go back in time, nor should we go back in time. But having said that, the Disney blog person who was assigned to write this blog, I feel bad for them. I'll send them a message later and apologize. Was basically told, hey, we're keeping something, make it sound like it's brand new. And that's what they did. But I'm really glad that it's staying. And you're right. The extra half hour sounds like it doesn't matter, and we originally thought it wouldn't matter. That extra half hour, if you do it right and you get up, puts you so far ahead the rest of the crowd at Hollywood Studios, assuming the attractions open on time. But that's a different conversation. And at Animal Kingdom for Pandora, and just. You're way behind if you enter at official park opening.
I think I've said it before on the show that our experience of Hollywood Studios is we've managed to be at the front of the queue for that extra half an hour. We managed to do Rise of the Resistance, Smuggler's Run, and eat a Ronto wrap in the first 35 minutes. So it was definitely worth it.
Sorry, I forgot something important in my notes when we're talking about park hopping. I need to remember. Park hopping's not going to go away until the virtual queues go away. The virtual queues are the important factor. Remember, you have to be in the park at 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to get in, and that allows them to control the traffic for these attractions. Now, since we don't have any big e-ticket attractions coming that we know of, there aren't any, but they keep talking about them. But there aren't any coming in the next few years.
Yeah.
Maybe that will go away, and then park hopping will return. But until the virtual queues disappear, park hopping's not going anywhere.
Right. Talking about getting in early. Half an hour is more than a lot of other parks do. Tokyo does 15 minutes. It's called the Happy 15.
Yeah.
And people are mad and you have to stay at a Disney resort to get it. And the queues for Happy 15 are always massive.
Oh.
Yeah.
Massive.
Also, it helps us Brits, I think, the early entry, because we're the ones who still have jet lag at the beginning of the holidays, so we're awake at 3 a.m. So by 7 a.m. it's not a problem. We're probably on a bus by then, you know. And we found actually, because it had been 8 years since we were at Walt Disney World, we didn't actually rush to a ride. We did what Jon is always telling us to do: pause and let the magic come to you. We spent half an hour on our first morning in Magic Kingdom just strolling and enjoying the atmosphere and enjoying being back in a park, in a really quiet park, and just soaking up the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that 30 minutes is however you wish to spend it, Jill. I've got a friend there at this moment in time who sent me photos this very morning of them in Epcot, and there was nobody there. They were there in their half an hour before, and there was literally, I was like, where did you get some special pass? Because there's nobody in her photos. It's like, what's going on? All the photos they've got up, they've been there and made the most of it. And actually, do you know what? You got to be in it to win it, you know.
Yeah. But in fairness, Claire, this week is very slow.
Oh, is it?
All
okay.
the Orlando theme parks, yes.
Oh well, fair enough.
But Epcot, as long as you're not heading directly to Remy's through the International Gateway,
that's exactly what they did. They were on the Skyliner, and they went straight to Remy, walked on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Every day, if you come through the other entrance, it's just a relaxing walk through, and it's no big deal at Epcot. It's as opposed to those of you who've done rope drop at Hollywood Studios, which I believe in Dante's Inferno. As I make that reference again, it's like the third closest level to the bottom of because it's just horrible. So
it's very peoply.
That is very nice. And if I put that in a blog, I have to put that in quotes. But yes, it is peoply.
Yeah,
definitely is.
I was also thinking, Claire, as well, knowing Anna, that'd probably be at 6:30 in the morning, and she'll have forced her way into the park just to be fair. Everyone out the way. That's it. I'm coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming through.
I've waited far too long to get back in the parks. I need to be in right now.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Have we covered all the news? Is there anything we haven't covered?
Yeah, all the stuff that we were going to ask John about originally.
Is anything released in the last hour while we've been talking? Because anything can happen.
Well, all joking aside, two things. My little notebook that you didn't see. Hold on, I'll bring it out because I'm old. I use a notebook.
That's what I like.
I finally marked everything off. That's why I was checking off. So I wanted to get that virtual queue thing in so I could put my notebook away. And I thought there was something from Disney, but it's not even newsworthy. So we're good at this very split second.
Excellent. Okay. Cool. Well, we'll keep
an
eye on what's going on.
No, though.
What the other thing is? Let's talk about
what the other thing was.
Oh, it's a minor thing about it. It's about a minor food change at one of the Disney Springs carts. It's not a big deal.
Well, do you know what, though? That's a great segue. Let's talk about some food stuff because, John, we've got you with us. And it would be really, I think, a big failing on our part not to talk about some food stuff with you while we've got you here and a captive audience, if that's okay.
And all this talk of Disney dining plan has made me hungry.
Everything makes you hungry, Ben. Every time.
I was going to say, in fairness, you have a track record, Ben. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I want to get into this in the most brutal way possible. So I'm going to ask John straight out. No, faffing about. Who has the best food offerings, Disney or Universal?
Ooh. If the definition is best, that's Walt Disney World. Walt Disney World has the best food. I've said this on lots of other places and written in lots of other places. And I don't want to put the normal disclaimer I put in there. I'll save it to the end. If you're looking for the best quality, if you don't live in a place that has the best Chinese food or the best Indian food or the best Mediterranean food, you're going to find something close to that at Walt Disney World. And can I probably find an equivalent in the Orlando area because I'm a foodie and write for other foodie magazines and I know where they are? Yes. But it would take you 3 hours to find this place, even if you knew what you were looking for. The food at Walt Disney World is much better. The food at Walt Disney World is better than is at any theme park resort in the world. Hands down.
That's simple then.
Yeah. That question is really easy, Claire, didn't it?
There is a but in there, though. I can feel that.
There are lots of disclaimers to go with this. But you asked the question, like, remember, we're talking to someone who literally is in the middle of a project for Mickey Visit. They do Disneyland and Disney World, writing up all the best restaurants at Disney Springs, Animal Kingdom, every theme park at Walt Disney World, every theme park at Universal Orlando, and expanding out. Trust me, it is. I had to make up some qualifiers. You asked best. You didn't ask best value for my money, best use of my time, easiest to get.
Here we go.
No, I didn't
Requires
ask
the
any
least
of that.
amount of planning.
Yeah.
You asked best.
Yeah, I did.
Now-
deliberately.
Now, yeah, right. That's the absolute correct question. You did exactly what a lawyer is supposed to do. Never ask a question if you don't know the answer. Okay. And don't misunderstand me when I'm doing, not that I was very good at it, which is evidenced by my life currently. When I'm doing marriage counseling in my pastoral role, I often am careful to ask questions that I know the answer to. That every woman says the same thing, every man says the same thing, to get both of them to see you see this differently. There's a reason I can say the same things to every couple, and you go, "Oh, I never thought about it that way." I'm like, "Yeah, because God made you different." But that's a whole different conversation. You know what the answer is. So, are you asking me, if someone were to ask me the questions, I change it as the podcast guest, where do I get a better value on food at theme park resorts? Well, that's almost always Universal Orlando. However, Universal Orlando doesn't have the wide variety of food that Walt Disney World. I mean, I think I did while we're recording, I talked about Morimoto. I've done a review for Morimoto, which I had the Burry Bop, which is his famous dish that he won Iron Chef originally. He made up on the spot, and the Iron Chef, the real Iron Chef, not the American version, the real Iron Chef in Japan. We watched with subtitles. He made up the Burry Bop. The chef comes out and makes it for you right in front of you. It's about $36 for something you're looking at like, well, this shouldn't be worth 36 US. You haven't tasted it. It is worth 36 US, but I wouldn't be getting it every single time. Universal doesn't have that. But I just did a review for Mickey Visit. Well, I submitted it. I don't know when it'll get published. I just submitted it today about Twosome's Twosome Chocolate Emporium and Savory Feast Kitchen, because everything has to have a long name. And I looked at the price for the items, and there was the things I was recommending was a brunch item that cost $14, a burger that cost $16, a major entree that cost $21. I just did a review of Homecoming for the same site, and I can't quote those same prices. And so that's the conversation you have to have but there's a let me say something positive about Walt Disney World, since I write about both. There's a reason that when people stay at Universal, they sometimes have a dedicated day and go over to Disney Springs and eat, because there's things you can't find at Universal Orlando that you can find at Walt Disney World.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
However, I go back over to Universal, and I don't even bat an eye. I walk into a restaurant, with the exception of the Palm, which has invited me out to eat there before, and the steaks are equal to Shula's over at Walt Disney World.
Okay.
With the exception of that restaurant, granted, I'm a non-drinker, so that really, really helps with cost. So in fairness, I encourage people to drink. You're on vacation, have a good time. Just don't be so drunk you can't get back to your hotel room. I see that a lot. Sorry. I never pay for a real meal more than $40 at Universal for something that would cost me at Disney World $75. Wow. So there's that value discussion. Mm-hmm. I mean, I bought lunch for, that was the other day, for 4 people at Twosome, and now granted, it is, I do get a 15% discount for Premier Annual Pass holder at Universal. So let's take that into effect. You get 10%. Well, annual pass holders get 10%. You may not, from UK. We ate there for, before tax, less than $100 for 4 people for a real meal.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. I got ratatouille pork tenderloin, which was pretty good. You can find that review at piratesandprincesses.net. Shameless plug. That's the question, is where's the best use of your money? It's real easy to go to Walt Disney World and spend, let's pick on Epcot. This is too easy. You go to the festival, you spend $60 on food, and you're still hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, the Mardi Gras festival at Universal is not as good as the Epcot festival. It's not even close. But I can't spend $60 before my stomach is full, and I'm a food blogger. Okay, just to give you perspective.
Mm.
I mean, I've eaten every donut at Voodoo Donut in one day. I mean, I know how to consume a lot of food. $60, I'm not hungry. I'm not hungry anymore. I can't do that at Epcot. So that's really the discussion: is, are things better? Do you find the best food in the Orlando area at Walt Disney World? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Is that always where you should spend your money? No. And that's the question. But as UK visitors, you spend so much time off-site. You know how to find the places off-site that are good deal. Go ahead, Claire. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was good. I think, do you know what? That's such an interesting point, though, John, because actually I was there at the end of March and we did Disney for 5 days. And then we did a Disney cruise. And then we did, on the way back from the cruise, we stopped at City Walk. We had some time. And so we went and got some food. And I would absolutely concur with the price difference was almost, shocking. We were like, we'd been to Tutto Gusto, which is like my favorite lounge. It used to be my favorite lounge until
it is a great lounge.
The bill came, and I was like, "What?" This used to be like my go-to place to hide from the rain in August. I am just going to get wet this year when we're there because I am not paying those prices again. It was obscene, and yet we could. We went to Toothsome, and we had. We had a varied experience, but the food itself was fine. And I think the price was definitely on the positive side. And we were quite surprised. I mean, we just got off a cruise ship, so everything seemed cheap. But, it did feel significantly different in terms of options, because we had a quick look around and we were just like, we haven't been to City Walk for ages. Where are we going to go? Our go-to is always Margaritaville, but it's it's lunchtime. It's not kind of time. So we went over to Toothsome, and I think the menu is extremely good. There is a huge variety of prices which didn't feel like that in Disney. It feel like everything has been bumped up, whether that's an appetizer, an entree, a dessert, a drink. It doesn't matter. It feels like every price has been inflated significantly. Yeah. And that's not talking about quality. That's just talking about price yielding. So, I think it's a really interesting point as to how you want to spend your money and where you want to spend your money. And it might be a bit of, hit and miss sometimes.
As someone else who knows food, who's trained and all that sort of thing, I don't think of it in terms of best value or anything like that. I know that some people do. I just think of it, did I have a good meal? Uh-huh. And if I had a meal that I think is worth the price, bearing in mind where I am, then I'm happy. If I have a meal that I don't think is worth the price, then I will not be unhappy, because generally the food is okay. But yeah, I will feel a bit diddled. But
I sort of understand where you're coming from, Peter. Actually, it's difficult to, when you look at the sort of dollar amount and you see the food, because we've got a big trip coming up, so we've looked at all the different restaurants. So it's like we've got a lot more signatures and a lot more character dining. But as long as I feel like I'm getting my money's worth and the food's good quality, and we've done Toothsome, we've done so many different types of restaurants. It's just trying to find that sort of right balance of what I think is worth it for me. And I think that's
you're right. What tips the scales, really? Is it actually, the food's okay, but the atmosphere and the theming is incredible,
because I could rave about the pizza I've had from Blaze and say that's a good meal. Right. But then on the other hand, I could say that I've been to California Grill and gone, it's all right. It's a very expensive. It wasn't up to my expectation.
That's exactly how I felt about California Grill.
Would I class Blaze better than California Grill?
Yes.
Well, welcome to my world. I mean, I will tell you when we get done here, I will go back to the project I was working on, where I'm taking the 6 table service restaurants at Disney's Hollywood Studios and ranking them as best. Now, how do you define what best is?
Yeah.
With all due fairness, I have all of Dustin's data about searching on Mouse Dining when the reservations are done. Okay, that's great. But that doesn't tell me how to evaluate that. I mean, let's be fair. I apologize formally to any restaurant in this area of Disney's Hollywood Studios, but Mama Melrose is going to be number 6 out of 6. I'm sorry to break.
I'm not.
Sorry to break
I'm
that
not
news.
surprised.
I'm sorry to break that news to you. It's just going to be. Then the debate kind of starts what you want to do next in Hollywood and slime. I mean, Hollywood and Vine is number 5. But then you have the other 4, and literally that's where you're getting to see the blogger world on work. That is where I stopped typing when I pushed to join this group, and I'm not sure how to rank 50s Primetime, Sci-Fi Diner, Hollywood Brown Derby, and Rodeo Roundup Barbecue, because it depends on who you are and what you want.
Yeah.
And so I really don't know
what you value in a meal as well.
Yes.
What's important?
Do you want all you can eat? Do you want the Cobb salad at Hollywood Brown Derby? Do you have children of a certain age and you really want someone else to cause them to have good manners and at 50s or do you just want to have that old time experience at Sci-Fi Diner? Because quite frankly, let's just be honest here. Sci-Fi in the 50s doesn't have the best food, but it's about the experience.
Yeah.
And I think that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because actually I remember, 1900 Park Fair, it's not back yet, but I would choose, and we've been there twice. The first time was a happy coincidence. The second time was entirely deliberate because I had a teenage son and I wanted to embarrass him. That was the entire premise of the meal. Because there's Cinderella, there's Prince Charming, devoid of personality, but there is Lady Tremaine and Anastasia and Drizella, and oh my goodness, they made his life hell for an hour and a half, and that was pure joy from a parental point of view. So.
In fairness, I can't tell you how many reviews, how many guest surveys, how many reports I've gotten from guests that say the same thing about Park Fair, or they're like, we took our kids to 50s Primetime just because they won't listen to us, but they had to listen to them. And my pastoral world, I tell people, that's because you're genetically related to them. You don't know anything because you're genetically related. Let someone else scream at them and tell them to get their elbows off the table and not be on their phone and do this. But you're right. You're 100% right, Claire. I mean, I've gone on record. You can find this online. You can see it here in other podcasts. I have a very low opinion of the food at 50s Primetime. However, my kid is college age. Okay. I don't have that phenomenon anymore. I'm not even paying for his cell phone. I don't even care. But I totally get it when I go on podcasts with people who have kids of a certain age, especially that area that I'm theoretically an expert in my faith-based world, the teenager but not fully a teenager phase. You just want someone else to talk to them because you're tired of talking to them because you've tried and you love them and God loves them, but you're not sure God likes them right now. It's one of those kind of things.
Yeah.
You're happy to take them. I totally get that. It's all about the experience that you want.
Yeah.
Do you want to relive Walt Disney in California allegedly having the Cobb salad be recreated? Do you want to relive the hash or the special steak that Walt Disney World made them make there? Do you want to pretend like you're a toy and Andy's coming by at Rodeo Roundup Barbecue? I don't know.
And I don't think you can put value on those things either, can you? That's
nope.
Totally individual, and that's why we have these conversations over and over, and we come up with different solutions every single time. And I had written down a whole list of questions around what's the best snack and the best quick service and the best Actually, I think you could ask that question every day that we can get a different answer. I'm sure there are some that what we just discussed. There are some that are better.
By the way, there are some good answers that you can find at Mickey Visit when those get published this month or next month, because I've had to break down every single one.
Perfect time.
And I've had to do the same conversation. And it always starts with, we've now reached the point where it depends on who you are. I know I had to do that with Magic. I had to do that with Magic Kingdom because Magic Kingdom, it's a hard thing, but how do you determine what's the best counter service at Magic Kingdom? Then you have to determine what's really counter service in a snack. That's a whole different conversation because there's a gray area. But what works for you doesn't work for others. What a lot of people want, they just want to sit and have the Casey's below average hot dog and sit there and enjoy things. That's great, but that's not your best option. I literally have to write a paragraph apologizing formally for not listing Casey's as the best counter service because it's not.
Never apologise to me for that. I hate goosies.
But that's Claire's point. And I just wanted to jump on and make the point of there are certain foods that are better. Yeah. But determining what's the best depends on who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I think it depends on the circumstances at the time. We went to Satuli Canteen and were really looking forward to it, but our food was cold and the guy replaced it and it was still barely warm.
Okay, change article coming out.
I know from the quality of the food that we ate that if it had been piping hot, it would have been one of the best meals. But that brought it down in our estimation. And that was probably just a one-off.
Yeah, we've been there several times over the years and not had a problem.
Yeah.
Touch wood, next month we won't have a problem. Yeah. We're going there twice.
On the other hand, at the beginning of the holiday, I was slightly unwell, and the first meal that I really had and really enjoyed was Katsura Grill. And although we loved it, Katsura Grill was great, and I would go there again in a heartbeat. Part of why I enjoyed it so much was, yes, I'm able to eat a proper meal. So that affected sort of my enjoyment of it as well.
But there are some really good... Sorry, carry on, Claire.
I was to say, you mean, yes, I'm able to eat a proper meal in the place that people don't really realise exists, and there's usually space to sit down,
that too,
and very good food at not a particularly expensive price. Just
that too,
I've enjoyed
food
at Katsura Grill, the counter service, and I've enjoyed food at Victoria and Albert's. We had a really great meal at Victoria and Albert's. Yes, one is cheaper than the other, and the food at Victoria and Albert's is more. It's incredible. It tastes delicious. It's proper fine dining. But as we were saying, it depends what you want, what's happening, where you are. You can enjoy a whole range of food.
Yeah.
There isn't a best, there isn't a worst as such. Oh, I don't know. There might be a word.
I was going to say, I will tell you from the food blogging standpoint, when you have to rank stuff, because it's not what you think is best. It's what most people will think is best. Because that's what you're trying to write. I mean, well, I'll just pick on this place. I don't like Liberty Tree Tavern. I don't like going to Magic Kingdom and having I think I have the right British term, a roast dinner. I don't like having any of those things. I don't want to have a U.S. Thanksgiving dinner at Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
However, ask me what's one of the most highly reviewed table service options there. It's Liberty Tree Tavern. I would argue because it is probably the least expensive all-you-can-eat option in all of Walt Disney. I think I wrote this a couple of days ago. It's totally gone. I've written so many numbers, but I think it's $39 per adult for all you can eat.
That sounds right. I went there in December when I was there on my own.
Right.
I was last day, Magic Kingdom. I hadn't planned anything to eat. So I was just like, I walk up at, 11:30. Yeah, come in. And I sat there on my own and it was ridiculous amount of food for one person. But it wasn't expensive. So I didn't begrudge paying $40 for all this food that I couldn't eat, because actually I'd eaten what I wanted. I'd been challenged by the server as to why I hadn't eaten the rest of it. And said, thank you very much, I'm full. But I didn't feel like I'd been fleeced in terms of cost.
Right.
No.
And so I can understand if you're there with a family and it's familiar food and it's comfort, actually it probably is a great option because you're going to fill the kids up as much as you can at lunchtime and then you haven't got to
correct.
It works.
Yeah. Right. I mean, and I know from ranking the table service restaurants at Magic Kingdom, I think, now granted, I submitted this 2 or 3 days ago, so who knows what happens when it comes out. I think I ranked it as the second highest rated table service restaurant, or third, because I needed to have one of the character dinings be second, I think, as one of the better ones. But if I were doing the ranking, it would have been 6th, 7th, maybe 8th of the choices at Magic Kingdom. But it's not what I think, it's what other people think, because you're trying to help. Back to Peter's point, is what gives most people the best experience. And Liberty Tree Tavern does for most people. I would go, spoiler alert, I would go to Skipper's Canteen first, but that's a whole
Yes.
Yes.
You're on the right page.
Spoiler for when that comes out on Mickey, but Skipper's Canteen wins that easily.
Yes.
And is in the running. It's in the running for the top 10 best table service restaurants at Walt Disney World. I haven't gotten to that article yet.
Yeah, we loved it.
We loved it. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
And as a plant-based eater, it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yes. As someone who in the theme parks spends half his time eating plant-based food, because that's the biggest changes in the theme parks. And I'm using that term loosely, and Claire, you're well aware of plant-based doesn't always mean the same thing. So you have to make sure, because just because they call it plant-based doesn't mean it really is. So you have to call them out for that. Sorry, that's a whole different conversation.
That's another story.
Another time.
Yeah.
One of my good theme park friends who runs Universal Orlando Vegans, we have this conversation all the time. Just because they tell you it's plant-based does not mean what you think it means when you think of plant-based. Yep. So just be careful. But Walt Disney World and Universal, and even SeaWorld, let's give them some credit, have done a really good job of upgrading from just the standard boring pretzel, and maybe we'll let you have a salad with a few vegetables on top, which is what it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Universal.
I'll go on, Peter.
Universal's not as big as Disney, so there is going to be less choice of restaurants because you're not serving as many people. We went to Antijitos, and we went to Cowfish.
Yeah, went to Cowfish twice. We had the bento box the first time, and that has a little slider burger in the middle. And we were so impressed by that little slider burger that we said, let's come back tomorrow and have a big burger. And the burgers were nice, but the little one was better. The little slider was actually better. So I think next time I'd go back for more sushi.
Antijitos was okay. It wasn't great, but it was likable. We enjoyed it. Where else did we?
Today Cafe.
Today Cafe was very good.
Really good sandwich.
I was very impressed with Today Cafe.
Yeah. Very simple.
That was really
nice.
Just
a nice, really nice Reuben type sandwich, and really good.
Jake's at our hotel. We were at
Royal Pacific.
So
Jake's American Bar,
which was good. I wouldn't say it was fabulous. It was worth it. It was worth what we paid. Yeah.
I still love the pizza place in Portofino Bay, though. Sal's.
Sal's.
Yeah. We on our first stay there, we went back lunchtime and we just sat by the lagoon watching the boats, the gondolas bob on the lagoon, and you couldn't even hear the theme park. It was so peaceful. Just sitting there outside eating this beautiful pizza, and that is one of the golden moments.
However,
Biche was not good.
We did not like.
Biche is really expensive. It's their top restaurant. It was noisy.
Sorry, for those of you who can't see this, I'm nodding to every single thing they're saying. So just so you know.
The food at Biche, the starters were fine, but the pasta was gloopy, thick and gloopy, and too much sauce. And the desserts were, we had a...
tasteless. We had a cannoli.
And
tasted of nothing.
And it was soft, not
crunchy. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Biche is really expensive. We wanted to go to Mamadella's, but it was shut for refurb.
So, Jill, that's interesting because Biche is a chain, and I've been to Biche in Dubai, and had a very similar experience. So perhaps actually it's consistently bad.
My overriding memory, the overriding memory I have of Biche actually is the server who was kind of
Jersey.
Yeah, he was kind of Danny DeVito-esque in his manner, not necessarily in his looks. And Peter started with minestrone, and the server came to see if it was okay, and Peter said, yes, it's very nice. And he said, better than out of a can, huh?
Okay.
Yes. At this price, I would hope so.
Maybe. But actually, do you know what, Jill? You said something I want to ask Jon about, because you mentioned about sitting having pizza and not thinking that you're in anywhere near a theme park. Now, there are places around both Universal and Disney where you can sit. You can have, either it be a beverage, a snack, or and you forget entirely that you are in a theme park. So, Jon, I want to know, what are your top tips for places like? I know where my go-to is, but I'm going to hold on to that and see if it's yours as well.
Off the top of my head, I would go. Well, I mean, let's give credit for the well-designed thing. You have to start this conversation with Nomad Lounge.
Yes.
Nomad Lounge. I mean, I knew that was the layup, so I was trying to be fair.
There was
because
breath there, wasn't there? Everyone just stopped breathing just to wait. If he
I would go Nomad Lounge, but then also I've already switched to. I'm thinking of spending time at the Polynesian, at any of the at I always get the name wrong. Tambu Lounge, the one next to Ohana.
Yeah,
you can get that same experience there. Ironically, depending on where you sit, now I'll totally change subjects. Depending on where you sit, you can have that experience at Bar 17 Bistro, which is the bar on the top of Aventura Hotel at Universal.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you sit on the side towards Cabana Bay, you're at a theme park resort. If you sit on the other side and it's the right night and clear enough, you can watch the fireworks at Magic Kingdom because you're that high up. Now, granted, you can see them. You're not that close, but you can at least see them when they go off.
Yeah.
That would be a good choice and an option. Of course, I'm very pro Aventura, because when I was listening to Jill talk, I was like, you need to have a different conversation, not so much about food, but what's the difference between the Universal Lowe's hotels and the Walt Disney World hotels? Because the experience you had at Portofino sounds like a wonderful thing that Portofino Bay Resort, I always butcher the name, I think that's correct, does really, really well. But you probably stayed there, don't tell me, we don't need to know, for the same price it would have cost you to stay at Coronado. And so it becomes what are we getting and how are we getting it for that? Mm-hmm. Because that's back to the baited question from Claire, which I'm not going to be as confident about. What's the best Orlando theme park hotel? I do not immediately run to Universal. I run to Disney. If it had better transportation, I would go run to Animal Kingdom Lodge and not have a conversation. Yep. But the transportation hinders Animal Kingdom Lodge. I'm not immediately running to the monorail resorts. I think they're going to win, but I need some more time to think about it. As opposed to the food question, I quickly gave the answer that we all knew was the right answer. The hotel is not that simple. Because I mean, I've stayed at Hard Rock and I've paid $225 a night.
Right.
I can't stay even with my connections. I can't stay at Coronado for $225 a night. I can get close. Mm-hmm. And I get way more advantages at Hard Rock and literally walk. I leave my hotel room. I walk out the back door. I'm at Universal Studios Florida through private security in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You can't do that from the Poly to Magic Kingdom. So that's kind of. But as I was listening, I'm realizing that when I do reviews at Universal, I spend a lot of time talking about anything at Universal Orlando. Any restaurant concept that is new in the last 5 years is going to be really, really good. Today Cafe is really, really good. It's new. The Central Park crepes, which are not really crepes, they're galettes, but that's a different conversation, is really, really good. We go over to Islands of Adventure. Green Eggs and Ham is far better than Friar's Nook over at Magic Kingdom with the same concept. Besides Rodeo Roundup Barbecue, what are the new concepts at Disney? And we're going to have the same conversation. Docking Bay 7 is a huge step up in quick service food. Ronto Roasters, I'm a huge fan of the Ronto's Roasters. So it's a question of the theme parks are trying to catch up on food and they can't do it because, let me say it, because people are choosing to go to Fast Food Boulevard at Universal Studios Florida, please don't, Oh, they're choosing to go to they're choosing to go to Cosmic Rays at Magic Kingdom. Once again, please don't. Depending on
who goes there? Who are these people that go to Cosmic Rays?
Based on data from sources that I can't confirm all of their information, Cosmic Rays may serve the most burgers per day of any restaurant in all the world.
Wow.
All the world.
Wow.
They're all bad.
And
Yes. they're all the standard
terrible.
below average
Cold.
frozen patty Bubba Burger.
Yeah.
Great.
They're terrible, but here's the problem. Sometimes your group just wants a burger. Now, granted, I would suggest 15 other places to go to, but that's the struggle. As long as Disney World and Universal Orlando and Disneyland, for that matter, because they're doing it too, can make a whole bunch of money selling average food, they're going to keep doing it. But the new concepts seem to be much better at both places.
Yeah.
I just wish as a food blogger that Walt Disney World would upgrade their concepts in park, because their concepts in park haven't been upgraded in quite a while.
Yeah.
No, I think
Have
you're
you
right.
been
The
to the
resort-
jacket?
It's so much easier to just get out of the park
Yes,
within
I'm not-
15
I'm
minutes
not-
and get to a resort and have
Yeah.
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 better option.
Have you had a jacket potato at the stall in?
I'm sorry. Are you
Universal?
asking a food blogger if they've had something? Which ones of them would you
Yes,
like to know
the
about?
answer.
I'm not high on them. And once again,
Are
this
they
comes
any
back-
good?
They are good. They are good. But this comes back to the same conversation. We made fun of Walt Disney World, and I didn't follow up about. I think it was Claire who commented on the prices are much higher than they used to be, and they are. I'm really getting tired of writing a review for. This is what you do as a freelancer. You write a review like 2 years ago for one site, and then you go back to the same place and you do a review for, say, Mouse Dining. Then you go to another place. Then a year later, you do a review for Mickey Visit. And so you're doing 3 different things, but you're ordering similar items because, say, you're going to Homecoming, you have to order the fried chicken, and you have to order, someone has to order the Shine Flight, which of course I'm not going to drink because I would be drunk after half one of those beverages. So, but because those things have so much alcohol, but there's certain things, and you compare your prices of the reviews you've written, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is 25% more than it was 2 years ago. The jacket potato has fallen into that trap at Universal. It used to, when not that long ago, it was $8.99 for the jacket potato for a rather large potato. And I'm offending the UK audience calling it a jacket potato, but you know what I mean? Because it's not really. We make it slightly different in here in the US, but it's theme park. It's kind of like the British food. I'm doing air quotes for people who can't see. The British food at Leaky Cauldron and Three Broomsticks.
Yeah. Which
is
not. Yeah.
It's Brit-ish.
Yes.
So it's ish.
Yes.
That works better.
Yeah.
That works better in a blog when you can see me now. But it's Brit-ish.
Yes.
Last time I went past which was a couple weeks ago, the London Taxi Hut. I think it was $10.99 for those jacket potatoes. I don't think they're that great a value at that point.
No.
I know they're more than $10 because I had to take them off of best counter service under $10.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
know
lot for a
that
potato.
I know that at the Universal Harry Potter breakfast things, they pride themselves having on what they call English bacon, which is basically not streaky. It's cut back bacon like we like it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's not the best.
It's not the best.
And black pudding, please. A great big lump of steamed, not fried.
Not fried
black
or grilled.
Pudding.
Steamed black pudding. Yeah.
No.
But it's mass produced. And that's the thing.
Yes.
You're not ordering a
the
bespoke meal. So
right. The mistake made in retrospect with the dining in the two Wizarding World areas at Universal is there's not a table service option.
Yeah.
Which might be remedied in a couple years in a rumored Wizarding World area far away at some public place. Yeah. might be solved. But back, I think Claire mentioned Rose and Crown. I don't know how many good reviews I read from US citizens of Rose and Crown. I have hardly ever read a good evaluation or a guest survey from someone international of Rose and Crown. Is it good? Yes. But if I'm going to get what's passing as fish and chips, and I am not stupid enough, because I don't know how many times I've written these words so many times. If you're from, someplace that talks about my country and having the American Revolution or the Colonial Revolution, you will not appreciate this version of fish and chips because it's not really fish and chips. And you sure won't like the breakfast that we claim is English breakfast or British breakfast because it's just not.
Yeah.
But the problem is you're not the target audience for those.
No.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's what I have to remember when I walk into, let me think of some place. Oh, this perfectly good example, because I dislike going to this place greatly. When you walk into Cinderella's Royal Table, which is has great food. That's great food. I don't like the fact that I know that I have to prepay $100 just to walk in there, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
That place wasn't designed for me. I'm a 50-something gray-haired old man. It's creepy having me in there. Let's just be honest. I'm not the target audience, but if you're the target audience, it's a great option. And so you've got to remember that. And then it's worth every single $100 bill you had to spend to prepay on your credit card to get in there. Especially now.
Lots of fish and chip places in America that we've been to, they all pride themselves on having malt vinegar. They show it to you. Look.
Yes, Lombard's in
vinegar.
Universal.
It is malt vinegar. They're not wrong. Finish your point because you're going to be right.
Well, it's it isn't odd for us to have malt vinegar.
Yeah.
It's standard.
Yes, it's a huge deal. It's kind of like when I was. This makes me sound like I was significant. I wasn't. When I'm traveling the world and I'm in one of your former British colonies in Southeast Asia, and they're all excited about they have malt vinegar. They had malt vinegar at the Dunkin' Donuts that was opened. Okay, that's great. By the way, that was before Dunkin' Donuts had sandwiches or anything like that. They just had bagels and donuts.
Yeah.
And I would just like for you, in Singapore, just to give you an idea, I'm like, okay, I get that, but that's not the point. There's a time and the place for malt vinegar, which would be when you choose to order from Yorkshire County, whatever. I always say it wrong because if you add enough malt vinegar, the fries and fish there is pretty good.
Yeah.
If you add enough.
Frozen chips. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we won't have the chips conversation.
No, we'll gloss over that. I'm going to go back to my point about other hidden gems where you don't feel necessarily you're in a theme park environment, even if it's a resort. Are there any other places that you think are particularly maybe underrated that are worth making the effort to go to? And I've got a couple in my mind, but I'm interested to know where you think is if you're staying there and it's not, whether you've got to get an Uber or you're driving or, maybe it's not a direct Disney free bus route. Where would you reckon is worth the effort to get to?
Well, I've already espoused the virtues of Animal Kingdom. If you can get to Animal Kingdom Lodge, they have so many options there of hideaway places and viewing things. If you're there for the holidays, for the winter holidays,
Christmas.
It's gonna pop out. Sorry, this is who I am. I function in the world of moderate theological world, and so I'm always everything. This is who God made me. This is who I've enhanced through the years. So the winter holidays, because I want to be respectful. I know Grand Floridian has a wonderful thing, and I've covered it, and I wrote about it a bunch. The things they set up at Animal Kingdom during the holidays is just amazing, and it's quiet, and it's wonderful. And there are lots of places to go and sit, and there's special little treats that have been themed. And granted, I'm a foodie, so I like the fact that it's non-traditional food at Animal Kingdom Lodge. There's so many places to go there. That was my first thought when you said that. If you can catch, you're going to really love this one. If you can catch it on a slow day, the little unknown bar at Restaurantosaurus at Animal Kingdom is a really good place to go because there's a little bar
Really?
tucked behind Restaurantosaurus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's tiny.
Is it?
Oh yeah, it's tiny.
Oh,
I have never been there.
I'm sorry.
Wow.
I see Restaurantsaurus and I go the other direction.
Bye.
Oh, don't misunderstand me. I'm enjoying the fact that as the non-drinking clergy member, I'm educating Claire about where to find the okay.
I'm there.
Um,
I'm putting it on my plan right now.
No, you need to go on a slow day because it does get very busy in there because there's probably 8 places to sit. But
Okay.
I mean, it's right back there. It's not hard to find. That's my initial thought. I'm not very pro baseline diner because I don't think you're outside of the theme park. I mean, you feel like you're right in the middle of it, even though I understand the virtue of it. And I need more. This is me. This is not most people. I understand the beverages taste great, but I mean more than you giving me this pretzel and this bogus charcuterie board and telling me it's a meal. That's like at Oga's Cantina. They're like, well, here's our food. I'm like, really? That's the best you could do? I know you can do better than that. I'm just working my way around at the moment. Anytime I'm at any of the boardwalk areas, I feel like I'm in a theme park, and that's probably not fair. Because there are some good options there because the boardwalk was intended to be a respite or a place to place to get away because they were trying to become more of a convention area. Swan and Dolphin, the Dolphin has several places that you can go and not feel like you're at a theme park. But the smart response is the Swan and Dolphin Hotel feels like you're not at a theme park. So that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's about all I can come off the top of my head because I keep circling back, and Jill's already mentioned it. And I do this. I sometimes write in the lobby, and writing in the lobby there is very challenging at Portofino Bay at Universal because their lobby is about the size of, the room I'm in right now. It's not very big.
Yes.
But you couldn't write because they have that outdoor experience. Spending time at the Hard Rock Hotel is also that same thing, but you're in a themed environment.
Yeah.
So you're not in a theme park, but you're in a themed environment, so that doesn't really count.
Yeah. See, I've got one. That I think
I'm wondering
might
what's the
be
same
on
one that I've got.
Three Bridges.
Yes, it is.
At Gran Destino. at
See,
Coronado. I think
it's great.
Three Bridges is great, but I feel like I'm at a theme park when I'm at Three Bridges. But that's because the cast members who are working there, I associate them from other places they have worked, which were clearly theme park associated. And I know that some of the food there is food that's been used in other places in the theme park that they've made way better, by the way.
Yeah.
And so, because now that I need to have a moment of silence. Now that the lobster Thermidor burger is no more at Grand Floridian Cafe, sorry to break that news to any of you, because it's gone. Lobster is pretty much going the way of the dinosaur at Universal at Walt Disney World. We can talk about that after because I don't want to cause any political problems for your podcast. But the Three Bridges burger could arguably be in the top 5 burgers on I keep saying Universal on Walt Disney World property. Sorry.
Yeah,
can you tell I did a Universal podcast this morning? Sorry. Yeah, I think Three Bridges is a good call. It's clearly a step up in lounges, but we're back to the same conversation. How long has Three Bridges lounge been around? It's relatively new in that world.
Yeah.
And so anything that's relatively new is far better. I mean, I'm kind of having that epiphany right now as we were talking. I was like, well, everything we're talking about that's good at Walt Disney World and good at Universal is because it's new. What does that mean? I'm still processing that and not sure what to do with that. Go ahead, Jill. I'm sorry.
We had a pleasant surprise at Primo Piatto in Riviera. We weren't staying there. We escaped a very, very busy Hollywood Studios. We got to the point where we were hot, we were frazzled, we weren't getting on anything, we couldn't get in anywhere to eat. And we said, I just want out of this park. And so we just walked out, jumped on a Skyliner, went to Riviera, and had a really, really good lunch. Just a sandwich and drink and whatever deal. And it was just so nice and peaceful and relaxing. We went up to Petite Cafe afterwards for a drink and a cake. And it was just so lovely and relaxing and quiet.
Yeah, Primo Piatto is I would normally say arguably because it's who I am. I'm never definitive about anything. That's how I function in the moderate world. That's how I can live in one of the most progressive states in the United States and do theme park work in Florida. So just so you can have an idea, because I'm the example politically and theologically of Mr. Moderate. So just so you know, that's who I am. Primo Piatto is the best counter service at any of the Walt Disney World resort hotels. I'm still thinking whether it's better than Aventura over at Universal Urban Pantry. I'll have to think about that. But it's far and away the best. I would have said, back to Claire's original question, I can't believe I didn't come up with this first because they do such a great job. I would go to Bar Riva at the Riviera. But once again, we're back to the Riviera. The Riviera is new. Bar Riva is new. Topolino's Terrace is arguably the best dining on property. When you figure in price, I know the price is scary, but I can get a much better food at Topolino's than I can at California Grill for far less.
Yes.
So just for comparison, and the character breakfast at Topolino's Terrace, I've written about this. Any place you Google Jon Self and Topolino's Terrace and breakfast, and you'll be like, and you'll find articles everywhere of, do you have anything bad to say about it? No, I do not. And the character experience is good, and now that everything else is raised in price, it's the same price as everybody else's breakfast. Yeah. But those places are new, like the Petite Cafe. It's a Petite Cafe, not La Petite Cafe, right? Sorry, we have a La Petite Cafe.
La Petite
Cafe. You are absolutely correct. As my Southern U.S. accent popped out, you are absolutely correct. It's probably one of the best in my world. We'll call it a bakery case counter.
Yeah,
it's probably one of the best ones on property, on any property. And so, but once again, we're circling back to the same conversation. It's new. It allows them to reinvent things. It allows them to start from scratch, because let's pick on Universal Studios Florida, not Islands of Adventure, but Universal Studios Florida and Hollywood Studios. If you know anything of the history of how those were built, how do I say this nicely and not be so rude? Haphazardly, and we just want to build these as fast as we can, and we do not care. Okay.
Efficiently.
And yes. And that's why you have dead ends at so many places, and you have all these problems. And the problem is they built these places, and now they're trying to retrofit in what needs to be there now. Yeah. And both are struggling. If you go to Universal Studios Florida, there are more walls up at Universal Studios Florida than there are at Epcot, because they're trying to fix everything.
And that's
Yes. And I'm pretty confident about that. And I got lost at Epcot in the area formerly known as Future World a couple of weeks ago, because I got confused where I was, because I was trying to go the way I normally would go, and there's just a wall. And I turned another way, and there was just a wall. So I get that.
Yes.
But it's all about new. So I guess I'll have to write about this because I'm pondering it. If you want to have the best experience, pick something that is new at Walt Disney World or Universal Orlando Resort.
Wow.
Because I can't think of anything that's come out new. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of, I haven't been, but the reviews and what I've been told, and I know where the food comes from, of Rodeo Roundup barbecue, but it's new and it's only $45. I thought it was going to be $55. I know we're talking only $45. What a great deal. We're back to Disney giving us our cell phone back.
But it's right about the same price as the Topolino's character breakfast.
That's correct. It's exactly the same price, because that's the frame of reference I used. I went, a character breakfast at Topolino's, it's a character breakfast. I immediately, anytime you have a breakfast, you add $14 to $20 on top of that. Yep. Well, this is going to be all you can eat meal. It's going to be more than Topolino's, at least a little bit, and it wasn't. And so that threw me off.
And the breakfast at Garden Grill now is also $45.
Yep.
Which I thought was going to go up in price, because obviously it hasn't been open. The breakfast hasn't been there for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hold on. Just give it a little time. Hold on.
Yep. Well, we've got a reservation for a couple of weeks just when it opens. So
you should be good.
Yep.
And yes, I am saying something that I'm not allowed to say that I know is true. You should be good. I cannot
keep that reservation.
I cannot guarantee that if you go once the dining plan is back.
Yeah, that'd be interesting actually, how that changes the dining plan, because that was always how it all seemed more cost effective to have the dining plan. To encourage people to have the dining plan.
When you guys talk about, you need to enjoy your experience and enjoy, because you can do what we call commando touring of Walt Disney World and miss the whole experience.
Yeah.
And you spend the whole time in lines, and you spend a whole bunch of money. But this is why I tell people, and I know it's horrible, and it does make me sound like a Universal person who favors Universal Orlando, but it's true. If you can only go to Walt Disney World for 4 days on your vacation, that's just all you can do because of your school schedule, your work schedule, all those things, I would think twice about going, because you're either going to have to do the goofy park hopper thing where you park hop for 2 days and you're just going constantly. Good luck with that. I tell people, maybe this is your opportunity to go over to Universal Orlando and have a relaxing 4-day vacation.
Yep.
Which, I mean, I know I haven't written it because everyone else has written it, but Universal Orlando is constantly, it's the same. It's like the same trick of Disney says to you in the UK, hey, we have a 14-day ticket for you that's the same cost as a 7-day ticket. Well, duh, you've had that since the earth cooled and dinosaurs roamed the earth. That's not new to you. Okay. Universal Orlando constantly, when anything's slow, says, come buy a 2-day ticket or a 3-day ticket and get 2 or 3 days free, which is what they're currently running at the moment. I mean, you're paying full price for 2 days. I mean, which is probably $300 because you got to park hop or park to park access. I need to use the right term. You got to go back and forth. But if you're going to spend $300 for 2 days, not spending anything for the next 3 days makes that a really good experience because Pepsi has to run promotions. Coke doesn't. So Disney doesn't have to do this. Universal does. And so as a result, if you only have 4 days, go to Universal for 3 days and take an off day rather than try to cram in Walt Disney World in 4 days. Now, I usually get told I'm not doing that, but I'm like, that's what I tell people to do. It's my constant advice.
Yeah.
Definitely an option. Now, I've got one final question for you, Jon.
Okay. I hope I have a better answer than I did at the other questions. I didn't do so well.
I'm not
You're doing very well. You're doing very well with Claire's question.
You are.
I admit.
Sorry, I've never thought about it. I didn't know.
If you were to pick one restaurant at the moment that is upcoming, that is under subscribed, but you think is about to blow up and become the next big thing, the next favorite restaurant in Walt Disney World, where should people be going to now before everyone else cottons on that it's amazing? Whether that be Walt Disney World or Universal, actually.
I used to say Sebastian's Bistro.
Okay.
Because Sebastian's Bistro, I've written this. I think I wrote this at Mouse Dining for Dustin. I think you can find it there. I did a review there. It was about the same time that Ohana brought the characters back, and then they bumped up the price $20, $25, something ridiculous when they did that. Because I remember going to Ohana breakfast for $25. I just want to say Ohana breakfast for $25 is one of the best values ever. I know I reviewed that for Dustin there. Then it became $45, and I was like, not as thrilled. I love you, Stitch, but $45 is not working for me. Ohana dinner was like $60, I think it is. I think it's $60, which I'm questioning whether it's worth that or not. By the way, I know Dustin said this when he was on your podcast a while back. It's still true. I checked with him. Ohana is still the highest, most searched for dining reservation in all of Walt Disney World. Just barely beating out Topolino's Terrace, which just barely beats out Chef Mickey's. So feel free to make whatever comment you want here.
Yeah.
Sebastian's Bistro basically was Ohana with slightly lower quality food, but the same pattern. You basically got some variation of everything at Ohana, with the exception of the noodles, but pretty much the same thing. They've kind of changed that up. So Sebastian, if you'd asked me this 6 months ago, I'd have said Sebastian's Bistro. Off the top of my head, I would go with, based on what I'm hearing, Olivia's. You're gonna. Okay. I'm skewed towards the resorts. Olivia's about to make an upgrade.
Wow.
Or Storybook Dining.
Okay. Ooh.
Storybook Dining is really upped their game recently.
Okay.
That's really interesting.
It's still a very highly sought after reservation because, sorry, and not trying to be rude, if you're not a gray haired old white guy, Storybook Dining has a lot of appeal. Okay.
Yeah. The characters there. Yeah.
It might do for some old grey-haired white guys as well, you know. Who knows?
I'm sorry. I believe I go visit them in incarceration. That's a different conversation. But in my food blogging, and those of us who are part-time, half-time food bloggers, we kind of share all our information and rotate who goes where. And there's a couple females in the group, and they've gone there, and they talk about how it's really made an upgrade. Whereas opposed to, and I always say this wrong, Akershus in Norway is really taking a step down.
Oh,
and whereas Storybook has gone up.
Yeah.
And so, and I would suggest that when Be Our Guest breakfast comes back, notice I didn't say if, I said when.
Yep.
That would also be on the list. But when that happens, everyone's going to know because Disney Parks blog is going to post it and warn you 3 years before it happens.
Yes, it will.
Kind of off thinking in terms of Universal, because dining reservations are becoming more challenging there. It's nowhere near the Disney level. Cowfish is actually even higher than it's been considered lately. I'm not a big fan of Cowfish, so it hurts me to say this, but Cowfish's quality of food has gone up dramatically. Cowfish's problem is historically the service is way slow. If you want to search UK-based theme park podcast and Cowfish, I'm sure you can find some scathing reviews that I may have been a part of also of Cowfish and how your meal took 2.5 hours and all you ordered was an entree. Just to give you perspective.
When we went, it was faster than Antijitos.
Yeah.
Well, you picked up. I wanted to say this when you were talking, but I talked over everybody so much already. I was trying to be polite. Antijitos is one of the lowest rated restaurants at City Walk.
Yes. Yeah.
Overlooked would be, now I'm back to Universal, is the Islands Dining at Royal Pacific is clearly overlooked. It's not Morimoto. But what is Morimoto? Okay, let's just be honest here. That's a very high scale. The food there is very good, and there's a walk deal on Friday and Saturday nights that's all you care to eat. I think it's $30. I'll have to double check. Yes.
Really good.
And so, and Universal annual pass holders get 10% off. So not that I want to mention that because that's a whole different conversation that I make fun of my Walt Disney World colleagues because when they go to a restaurant, they don't get a discount. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm over here getting a 15% discount on top of the fact that I got a 20% discount for purchasing this card. So I just paid basically $7 for this meal. What's your problem? So that's a whole different conversation.
The problem with island dining is it's not Chop Chop. I'm sorry.
First time we stayed there, we ate at Chop
that's
Chop,
fair.
That was amazing.
But in fairness, it doesn't cost the same level as Chop Chop.
No.
Because that was the criticism of Royal Pacific. The dining was too expensive for most of the people staying there. When you stay at Portofino, you know what you're going to get. It's like being critical of, you stay at the Grand Floridian Resort and Spa. I think I got the right name. Sorry, Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa. Sorry, as a blogger, you have to get the name right every time. Complaining that my food at Narcoossee's is too expensive. That doesn't hold in that. No. Just be quiet. You signed up for this. Be quiet. Walk away.
You're staying there.
So if you want to complain about you've drifted off and you went to Captain Cook's and you got something over there and it was $15 and you can't believe it was $15 when it would have been $5 off site, that's a different conversation. But you agreed to stay there. You get what you get. Royal always was until the convention business was much higher at Universal. Universal has taken away a large percentage of Disney's convention business, by the way. That's why Coronado is a better deal than it's ever been. Until then, Royal was accused of the dining was just too high for the people who were staying there because it was the lowest premier hotel. So it was the cheapest hotel you could get and get express. Yeah. And so it was hard to do. It was hard to balance those. And so Universal's trying to find a happy medium.
Yeah.
Whereas, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say it's really interesting in terms. I was going to go back to storybook dining because I was a massive fan of Artist Point, and I have not been able to bring myself to go back to that particular restaurant since it's been Storybook Dining. I feel like I'm kind of cheating on Artist Point a little bit, even though it doesn't exist anymore. So yeah, I'm interested to know why it's improved. Maybe I'll put it on the list.
Yeah. But in fairness, sometimes, remember, improved sometimes has to do if you were considered, because in the food blogger world, which doesn't mean anything. That's like when you go to see a movie at the theaters and the movie critics think it's terrible, and you go to see it and it's the best movie you've ever seen in your whole life because it gave you exactly what you wanted. As the person sitting here in his Black Panther shirt and his Black Panther pants next to his Black Panther, backpack that I use walking around and everything. Critics were critical of Black Panther too, but I was like, yeah, but we got what we expected. That's like, once again, complaining. You went to McDonald's and you complained that your cheeseburger tastes like a cheeseburger. That's not really fair. In the food blogging world, Storybook Dining had a very low opinion because they jacked up the price and they didn't improve the quality. Mm-hmm. So we had it at a lower level to start with. Even though I'm concerned about the portion size, yes, I'm being a gray-haired old man, the food quality has gotten better. Mm-hmm. Well, the portion size has not, but the food quality has gotten better. So if you're going for the character interaction and quality food, I think that's a better option than it's been before. Okay. I know in looking through Dustin's stuff at Mouse Dining, I know that's in like the top 6 or 7 most searched for dining reservations at the resorts. Wow. So when you consider Ohana and Topolino's have to be at the top, and I've told you Chef Mickey's is number 3, being in that group means it's up fairly high. Because you all know that dining reservations go quickly.
They do.
For lots of places that they shouldn't go very quickly. Chef Mickey's.
Yes. Yeah. I'd love to know who's booking Chef Mickey's.
Not me.
I know who's booking Chef Mickey's, because when I was there for halfway to Halloween, the day the halfway to Halloween thing dropped, we went and had all the food items. They were basically the same food items they recycle every year, but they changed them just a little bit so that we would go and take photos of them and post blogs about them. I went to see the new procedure at Chef Mickey's of how people get in and what they do. I would not go to Chef Mickey's. I literally, I will say this, if a site said to me, we need a review from Chef Mickey's because it's the 3rd or 4th most searched for thing, I would say, I think that's great. I will send Andrea, or I'll send someone else, and I'll take a 5% cut. I'll take a 5% cut in whatever you pay her, and we'll be done. Because they're basically herding cattle and meeting Mickey as you go for the special photo op later, and if you've been to Contemporary is not the most. It doesn't fit the mold. You're at a theme park resort. Everything reminds you're at a theme park resort.
Yeah.
It's kind of industrial, isn't it?
Yeah. It's not warm and fuzzy.
No. And that's a bit that we ate in Chef Mickey's years ago.
Sorry,
when the kids were probably young. Yeah, but the kids were really
only
young.
once.
And when you sit there and you're thinking, hang on a minute. Okay, kids are getting the experience of the characters and stuff like that. But actually, this is the most hideous place to sit and eat. And we've never returned. And
I'm having with some YouTubers, and you can find it. Google me, and I won't give them a shameless plug, but they'll talk to me later. I'm with a group of YouTubers who are at Disney World 4 or 5 times a week, and we're having the Madame Leota cake, which is the standard. It was a devil's food cake. They improved a little bit and put a little Madame Leota white chocolate piece on top, which, by the way, the white chocolate pieces are slightly better now than they were for Mickey's Not So Scary last year. They made them a little thicker and a little less of the paper on top of it. So just, but still not good. I'm literally sitting there. We're taking photos. We're doing all the blogger things. And literally as about 1.5 meters from me are people dining at Chef Mickey's. And we're doing this. And it's like, this is a horrible experience for them. Yeah. And I'm like, what do we do? And yes, I do know how long a meter is. I spent much time outside the U.S. I know how far a meter is. And so it's one of those. Yeah, it's not the best dining experience in the world. And then the price point is a little high. That goes back to Peter's comment about the experience. Is Even if the food was better, is the experience worth the price?
Yeah.
Because we could argue that I wouldn't. But if you wanted to, you could argue that maybe if you ordered certain things at Topolino's Terrace for breakfast, that maybe it wasn't a good value or experience. Good luck with that. But maybe you could argue that. You can't argue that the food is a big part of the experience at Chef Mickey's. You just can't.
Mm-hmm.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
And so that's the struggle where I would go, I think I would. If they lowered the price just a little, I would go to Topolino's just for the breakfast, not for the character experience and not for the quality service for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't pay $45, but I might pay $37.
I have been completely scintillated with the amount of information about food that you've actually been able to share with us. So you've mentioned throughout as to I know you're on Twitter, but where can we go? Where can we go and find out some of the things that you're writing about? Because I know that many people who've listened as long as this podcast has actually been, if you've got to this point, you want to go and find out a bit more about Jon Self. So, a bit of self-promotion, really. But tell us a bit. Where can our listeners find you?
Okay, so just let me make sure I got this straight. You just told a U.S. citizen in his mid-50s, gray-haired white guy who works as a clergy member that he's allowed to talk. Sorry, I want to I know how to do this quickly because my industry is famous for saying in conclusion and then it's not. And I feel like making some joke about King Charles as the leader of the church right now, but I've taught Baptist heritage, so I'm not going to do that right now. Basically, the easiest place to find me is on Twitter at Pastor, Pastor, Jon, Jon, because it's Jon because H's are oo, Self, SELF, and that's the easiest place to find me. I mean, I'm on all the other social medias. It's easier to find me there in those places. Currently, and these things change because I'm a freelance blogger. No one is paying me a salary. No one is this. If I don't write, I don't get paid at the moment. So that's how it works. Mm-hmm. The easiest place to find me writing about food is at piratesandprincesses.net. I've been writing with them for a while. The big projects, especially about Walt Disney World, that I've been writing at the moment, you can find at Mickey Visit. I'm writing for in the other theme park world. I'm writing for Attractions Magazine, which some of you may be familiar with. Matt lets me write for them. I'm trying to decide who else I'm allowed to mention that I write for. I write for because sorry, I say this nicely. I can't mention some places because I write for them unofficially.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Say no more.
I can't tell you about that because you have to find it in a different medium if you want to know about food. I write for Thrills Taste Travel, which is primarily a food blog. It used to be known as Universal Food Blog. And I also write for Pixie Vacations and Universal Family Vacations. Pixie Vacations focuses on Walt Disney World. I just did a blog for them about best Animal Kingdom rides and best Animal Kingdom food. Oh. And then Universal Family Vacations obviously does Universal food. I think I did a blog I did one for every single best food item at Universal, which took forever. And no matter how much wonderful money Steve put in my PayPal account, which he actually has just paid me for an article while we're sitting here, was probably not worth the time I put in on that. Oh. I think that's all the places that I can mention that I officially write for. You may have mentioned some others that I still have affiliation with in some way.
Oh, that's so nice.
Okay, thank you.
But also, can I just say a massive thank you for your input into our live shows on Wednesday?
Yeah.
Because to have somebody who is there in the here and now when we're the other side of the pond, we really do appreciate the input that you have to our shows as well, Jon. So a massive thank you.
You're welcome. And it allows me to have a distraction while I'm typing mindless things. doing search engine optimization or trying to tag a right thing or trying to find the right article, because that gets into how blogs work, and you have to find the right article. And somebody wrote this article 10 years ago that you're linking back to, or some site you might want to make fun of that's really clickbait. Just put out an article about the best I'll make fun of them because they did this recently. The best Universal Orlando restaurants, and they listed Mel's Drive-In and Fast Food Boulevard. Yes, and if you're familiar with Universal Orlando, you are horrified by those statements.
Yeah.
I mean, those are fine for what they are, but you're horrified by those statements. I get a lot of those. There was the article that some site put out about the best pizza at Walt Disney World, and they listed Pizza Rizzo as number 2. But I had to find that article because I was using that article as a base for maybe you want to check your sources before you read certain things.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, fab.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So
It's been great to catch up with you again, John.
it's been good to chat with you, John. I know you got to go. Thank you so much.
It's been great. I can honestly say, having met you at Port Orleans French Quarter, John is the nicest guy in the world. He's a great person to spend time with. Maybe under better.
I'm sorry. You're talking about me. I'm not sure that's true.
Some other John.
Maybe under better conditions than torrential rain that we were having at the time. But yeah, it's great to catch up with you again, and thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. And remember, I had lunch at Homecoming, and Southern comfort food makes everybody happy. So that's a whole different conversation.
Oh yeah,
right. Homecoming makes everyone happy, and that's not just the moon.
Yes,
just
yeah.
So, as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, we do have some great things in the pipeline coming up, including our Wafflers Wednesdays, our live show every week, and we've got some amazing topics coming up, which may include some food. So, just as a heads up to people. If you enjoyed today's show, then don't forget to click the subscribe button so you don't miss out all of our future shows. And we'd love it, really love it, if you could share that with your friends, your family, anyone that you know really who might enjoy some content about Disney, about Universal, about travel, about food, all of that stuff. We love talking about it and we like sharing it with you. So come and join us also in the Wafflers Arms, which is our Facebook community. It's our virtual pub. You buy your own drinks, I'm afraid. And we get together to food's better than the Rose and Crown. They're just saying.
Food bloggers don't like paying for stuff. Come on now, we get reimbursed later.
Okay. But, we do talk about Disney news, our trip countdowns, lots more. And there's lots of interactions and polls in there at the moment about our future shows. And you can find us on Instagram, Facebook and TikTok at GB Mickey Waffle. So thank you so much, John. As others have said, it's been, I can't believe how quickly the time has gone tonight. We've talked about so many things, from news to food and everything. And I just think we could keep talking for, another few hours. So you will be invited back. Absolutely no question. And thank you. Thanks, guys, for joining us. And there's only one thing left to say.
Waffle on.
Waffle on.